This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 31 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, Barn Building with Blackburn Architects. We would like to thank our sponsor, Equestrian Collections, for being part of the show. You can find them at equestriancollections.com.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for the Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. The Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Helena B. And you're listening to the Stable Scoop Radio Show.
Hey, Helena.
Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Okay, it's good to talk to you again this week.
Yep. Yes, this is my favorite day of the week.
Is it?
Yeah.
Not because of me.
Absolutely.
Oh, well, that's nice to know. My wife doesn't even say that.
I'll have a little talk with her.
Okay, you do that. See, I have to be careful what I say about you because you're like best friends with my wife. So that's it's never good.
You can say what you want about me. It's okay. I can take it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I found the coolest thing this week. Before we get on to what we're going to talk about in the show this week, I found the coolest thing I have to tell you about.
Okay.
I want you to go to horselinkmagazine.com.
Horselinkmagazine.com.
Yep.
Going.
So you go to horselinkmagazine.com, and all our listeners should do this too. And you click on the click here. See the big click here red button there?
Mm-hmm.
Click on that.
Okay.
And it takes you over to Horse Link Magazine. It's an online magazine put out by myhorse.com, and it's new. It's the first episode. It is the coolest thing. I'll tell you what, I have never seen anything quite as cool as this. We've all seen the magazines where you can flip the pages online.
Yep.
But this one goes beyond that. First of all, the graphics make it look like a very professional, very neat magazine.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing is it embeds videos like I've never seen them embedded before. The whole thing is just seamless. This is the future of newspapers and magazines. We know they're all going out of business.
Oh, don't say that. Not going out of business, just changing their medium.
Changing their style. Some of them are going out of business in newspapers and things, but they're having to change because the paper's too expensive, and it's not good for the environment either.
Right.
So,
and you're doing everything else online anyway, so you might as well read your magazines online.
But people want the experience of being able to flip the pages. That's part of what makes looking at a magazine so cool.
Yeah.
Is being able to flip the pages and see it in magazine format rather than surfing the internet like we all have to do.
Right, and clear graphics, too. That's one of the things I like about having a magazine or a catalog right in front of me is I can hold it closer to my face to see the picture clearer. I have built-in zoom feature.
Well, I'll tell you what. What do you think of the graphics on this are incredible.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
It is just incredible. Now, the advantage they have, I'm going to open it up here. Now, there's a little video I want you to hear to just a little bit about what the magazine's all about. We'll play that. Can you hear that?
Hi, I'm Natalie, and welcome to the first issue of HorseLink Magazine. Inside, you'll find great how-to articles on how to improve your horse riding experience, plus training and health tips from the industry's leading experts. But that's not all. In HorseLink, you can watch informational training and how-to videos with an easy click of the mouse. And HorseLink is so easy to use. Turn pages by clicking and dragging the corners, or click one of those colored buttons on the right-hand side to read your favorite area of interest. Check out those buttons below and explore how to make HorseLink Magazine work best for you. You can even email the magazine to a friend. We hope you enjoy your first issue of HorseLink Magazine, a new breed of magazine for the dedicated horse owner.
What do you think? Isn't this cool?
Very nice.
And when you flip the pages, the videos are just, and they even do videos. You know what they did that I think is amazing? They put videos in the advertisements that really make you want to watch the advertisements. I mean, they really have thought this out. And of course, I think that, their geeks are pretty good because the graphics and everything just integrates so well.
Yeah.
It's cool stuff. I encourage everybody to go check out. And we're not being paid. They're not a sponsor. Yep. But I just found it and thought it was cool, and our job is to pass on cool horse things.
And we're geeks, so we like when between the graphics and the multimedia integration, this really is cool stuff. I'd be interested to see how clear it comes up on, I don't know what they're calling them these days, but personal computing devices like iPods and iPhones and mobile computing.
I don't know if you'll be even able to use it on there because of the way it's laid out. I don't know. I don't know.
It'd be cool if you could.
The other thing, I don't know if you noticed on the left-hand side of the page, they have tabs called Saved Clippings, Search Results, and Contents. Oh. If you click on Search Results, you can actually search the magazine, and it saves your search results over there. You can also click on Contents, and it shows you every little page of the magazine, so you can click right to that page. And Saved Clippings, you can click on the clipping and save it in your saved list, so you can come back to it later.
Now, you know what? There was a lot of thought put into this. Yes. I bet there were a lot of behind-the-scenes meetings before this thing ever even took off.
Well, we're going to try and get him on the show. I tried to get him on for today, but the gentleman we needed to talk to was traveling. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to try and have him on the show just to talk a little bit about that. I just think it is the future of what you're going to see in online magazines. They're all going to have to do this. So I just hope they all do it as well as they did.
Yeah.
So kudos to My Horse for coming up with a really cool thing.
MyHorse.com, right?
Yep, exactly. Great. And you can find their magazine at horselinkmagazine.com. Well, what's on today's show, Helena, other than talking about really cool gadgets?
We have, I'm really excited about today's guest and today's topic. It's barn building with one of the premier architects in the country. John Blackburn is going to talk to us about building equestrian structures and his particular philosophy and style and the things that he thinks are important when you're designing a barn, whether it be something that's fully custom and over the top or very simple for the backyard horse owner.
Well, great. And we'll have him on shortly to talk all about barn building. That'll be fun. He has done some of the most beautiful properties I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of his work is around here, around Lexington on some of these tremendous horse farms. He's just built some really neat stuff. And I don't think he started out that way. So it'll be interesting to hear his story and how he's built it.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, but before we get to that, we have a couple things to do. One is we have to make the announcement of our first winners of the March Stable Scoop giveaway.
Yay!
Yay! So we've picked the winners of the hats. These are the Dry Duck Embroidered Twill Caps from KBC Horse Supplies. We thank KBC Horse Supplies for donating them, and you can find out more about KBC at kbchorsesupplies.com. We had 3 different of these twill hats, and you got to pick which one you want. We have a winner, actually, for each one. So the first winner was Tom Stevens, and he's from Branchport, New York. So Tom actually chose the Mustang Gray hat, which is pretty cool. So Tom, congratulations, Tom. And then we have Latina. How do you say her last name?
It's Reville?
Reville. Okay, so
we'll go with Reville.
Okay. Latina Reville of Lawrence, South Carolina. And she chose the one my wife got, the Field Horse Yellow.
That one's pretty.
And you want to do the last one here?
Sure. We have Melinda Myers, and she's from Kennewick, Washington, and she won the Barrel Racer Pink hat, which is also very pretty.
Yeah, so congratulations to all of them, our first winners. We'll be in touch with them shortly to get the addresses and get their hats out to them.
Congratulations, guys, and thanks again to KBC Horse Supplies.
Well, now we have to take a look at what we're giving away this month. And remember, if you registered last month, you have to re-register this month. We don't carry those over. So each month you have to go in and sign up. So be sure to do that because we have 4 great items we're giving away this month. The first is from Equestrian Collections, our new sponsor on the show, and we'll actually be talking to Chris Dugan, who's the founder of Equestrian Collections, here shortly. But Equestrian Collections were kind enough to donate a $75 gift certificate for equestriancollections.com. You can pick anything you want. And they have tens of thousands of items.
Gazillions of items.
Yes.
They have such a great selection of stuff.
As a matter of fact, she said that on any given day they have over $100 million worth of products to choose from.
Holy cow.
So, yeah, they're a big company. So Equestrian Collections brings the whole universe of equestrian shopping to your fingertips, and we're giving away a $75 gift certificate for them. In addition to that, the second item is from one of our sponsors, EasySignsOnline.com. And they are the leading farm supply company in America, and they have donated 3 custom stall plates.
Ooh.
So 3 winners will get 3 personalized stall plates from EasySignsOnline.com. You can use them for your horse's stall, your dog house, for a nameplate in your bedroom door, that says brothers keep out or whatever you want to put on it.
No boys allowed.
That's right. So they're very nice, and they come in a multitude of colors. You get to customize what you want on it and customize your colors. And they're donating 3 different ones of those. So we'll pick 3 different winners. And we want to thank EasySignsOnline.com for donating those. So we have the $75 gift certificate and 3 different customized, personalized stall nameplates. And you can register by going to
Yeah. Do you remember the name of our show?
Yeah, stablescoop.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a link to just click on that. It's free to register. Just sign up, and you'll be in for next month's drawing.
And this drawing runs through the entire month of April.
That's right.
And we will announce the winners on May 1st.
Yep, first week of May. Yep.
First week of May.
That's great. And we appreciate everybody that signed up last time, and we encourage you to go register again. You'll want to win that $75 gift certificate. Okay, let's do this. Let's get Chris Dugan on the phone. I know Chris for many, many years, and she was actually on our show before. She helped us out with the Christmas gifts episode for the English side of things back in November. And she has now, with Equestrian Collections, signed on to be a primary sponsor of the Stable Scoop radio show, and we just want to give her a welcome. Well, hi, Chris, and welcome to the Stable Scoop show again. You've been on before when we did our Christmas episode back in November, but this time I get to welcome you as a primary sponsor of the Stable Scoop radio show. And I wanted to, on behalf of Helena and I, thank you for joining the group.
Well, hi to you both, Glenn and Helena. It doesn't seem 5 minutes since Christmas time, and here we are.
We were just saying that.
In April.
I'm like, he said November, and I said, wait a minute, it's April. Oh my God.
I know this is ridiculous, but we're just thrilled to be a sponsor for Stable Scoop. We just love the idea of having on our site too, and offering a really dynamic approach, not just to shopping, but for a one-stop place where people come and they want to shop and look at what we have, but also would be interested in hearing a podcast or kind of seeing what else there is to offer by companies like yours. I just think you're doing such a splendid job that. It's exciting, and we want to be a part of that. So we're very, very happy to do so.
Well, we're glad to have you as a part.
Yeah, I love shopping at Equestrian Collections. I really do. And I say this, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, because I am something of a shopaholic. But one of the things I like best is that not only do you have so much to offer, but it's easy to find. So if I'm looking for something in particular,
right.
I'm pretty much guaranteed to find it on equestriancollections.com. I don't have to go comparing prices or searching all over different sites. I think that's a real benefit of having such a broad selection of things. And then, of course, your prices are so
exactly what we do. Is I think that really differentiates us in the industry is what we've tried to do is bring our shoppers the equestrian shopping world, if you like. What we don't do is cherry pick through things and make choices for you. As a shopper, what we try and do is, and in fact we do, is look at the close on actually almost $200 million worth of goods that are available for sale any given day in our industry, bring it all to our shoppers and say, hey, we know you can choose. You make your choices, and we'll deliver what you want. So, the technical side of that is quite difficult, but the front end of it, where our shoppers shop, yes, we do try and make it as absolutely as easy and as friendly and as intuitive as we possibly can.
Well,
and it's fun, hopefully.
You do have, and I gotta. Helena and I are both, Helena more than me, our graphic artists also. Helena's a very good one. I hack at it. But your graphic artists are great, and your emails, your weekly emails are very pretty. They're the prettiest ones I get.
Yes.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear, and we have a wonderful graphic team here of young people who are just, I think they're some of the best in the industry. So we're thrilled to have them. They do understand our industry very well too. So I think that shows as well.
Well, play the show back to them, and I'm going to say directly to them, you guys do a great job. You're some of the best in the industry.
Agreed. From one graphic person to another. Love it.
Well, thank you.
Your user interface is also very easy to, is well done and well thought out.
Well, you guys are going to be doing some things for us, too, along the way. First thing we just announced is the $75 gift certificate, and we thank you for that. I'm sure we'll have lots of entries for that this month. And also, you're going to be down the line as we go along. You're going to be bringing lots of exclusive. I can't talk today, Helena.
No, I know. We're going to have to send you to Remedial Podcast.
Honest to goodness, I didn't have anything to drink at lunch or anything. It's this way naturally. That's no help needed.
Pay extra for that, right?
So we're going to have lots of exclusive coupons, offers, and news that you'll be able to find. And also, you're going to be carrying the show, so people will be able to listen on your website, which is kind of neat. But this week, we do have a coupon, and it's $10 off an order of $120 or more. So if you're in the market for anything right now, check out Equestrian Collections first. Their prices are great, and we have this $10 coupon for you that's exclusive here to the Horse Radio Network. And all you'll have to do when you're checking out is put in the coupon code SCOOP1, SCOOP1, and you'll get $10 off your order of $120 or more. And they also have something called a Coupon and Deals ebook. Tell us what that is.
Yeah, what we do is we put together a really nice, it's multi-page, probably 12, 15 pages of the best deals that we have on the site. You can click on that, and it opens like a flip book, so you can go from page to page. And when you see the deal that you like, you just click on it. You don't have to go and hunt around and find it on the site. It goes straight there. So you may be saving $100 on some of the items that we have, for example, and you can still apply that coupon on top of it. So there's literally hundreds of items in that book. And then you can apply your coupon on top of it. So, and it's great. We also have at this point about 30 e-catalogs where you can look at all your favorite brands, the catalogs that you probably have never seen before, because normally the manufacturers don't show their catalogs off or can't get them to you. Now we can show them to you, and again, they're just gorgeous, and it's all click to purchase, so a lot of fun. If you like magazines and you like catalogs, you'll like these.
Yeah, I like the click to purchase option, so you can sort of browse and then say, oh yeah, I want that, I want it now.
Yes, exactly. We're all into that. I want it now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris. You and I, we really started internet shopping for the horse world way back many years ago.
Yeah.
You and I were one of the first ones. I had the Horse Stuff Company, and you had 1824. Back then, which really took off. We used to send people to you all the time because there weren't that many of us.
No, that was for the Plus rider. We started with a little catalog, and then lo and behold, the internet kind of started right after that, and we had one of the first internet sites in our industry. You're right. When I look back at what we had to do and how we did it then compared with what we do now, it's just a million miles away different. But
well, the first thing is we started on a dial-up connection trying to build websites. That was the first thing.
Right.
Do you still, speaking of 1824, Chris, do you still offer plus-size collections?
Yes. In fact, we're still the only company that has a whole collection. A lot of it is custom-made for us. So we can outfit the rider on the English side, at least, right through wide calf boots to breeches to shirts. RJ Classics makes all our jackets for us. We have Wellington makes a lot of our shirts. Just terrific. Basically, anything that you want now in a plus size, that you want, we basically have.
I still see 1824 floating around the chat rooms and the forums, and so it's if you were a fan of 1824 or you hear of that name, check out Equestrian Collections, because that's who they are now.
Yes, and that's one of our main collections, and still one of our most popular, I have to say. So we're thrilled with it.
What about petite sizes? Do any of the manufacturers make riding wear for petites?
Just a few. RJ Classics makes all their jackets and short, for example. Tailored Sportsman does do shorts also in their breeches. Those are about the only companies that really address that market. And I think one of the reasons that there are only just so few is that a lot of the sizing on the show gear is still in European sizes. And so they go down very tiny anyway to a size 2. In fact, we spend more time than not saying, hey, what about the other end of the scale? The American woman tends to be, larger boned, very much taller. And what they do is the European sizes kind of run out. So that the U.S. sizes is left at, finishing at size 14, which in this day and age is actually, fairly smallish size when, in fact, the average size in the United States is a size 14, believe it or not. So what we're trying to encourage our manufacturers to do is to move slowly towards American sizing and also to add those extra sizes on the other end. So we get the 16 and an 18 at least. And then I don't know that many ladies who are a size 2 and 4. Keep them, but remember that we're kind of drifting more or less the other way. So.
Yeah, I have a hard time finding. I'm short. I'm not necessarily skinny, but it's hard to find breeches that are short enough and still fit the rest of my body. And I think with riding gear, it's very sensitive. If you have something that's too long or doesn't fit you right, it can actually make a difference in your riding. So it's really frustrating and hard to find just the right fit.
That's true. I think you probably lucked out a little with the low risers, because before what you would have had with the regular risers would be, the waist on a regular pair of breeches would have been underneath your armpit somewhere, which is not not the look we are all striving for. So I think with the lower rise and some of the more stretchy fabrics, four-way stretch fabrics that people have the ability to buy now, I think you'll be easier to fit than maybe 5 years ago or so, hopefully.
Sure.
But you can get your Tailored Sportsman's in a short. So.
All right, guys, I think we're running out of time here. We have to get over to our interview for the day. But thank you, Chris, for joining us. And again, we welcome you to the show. And I just wanted to mention one other thing, too, that we always got the question for when I was in the tack business. Yes, you do have men's stuff.
Oh, gosh, do we ever. We have the largest men's selection, bar none. So, yes, we do. And we'd love to have you come and shop with us. So
yeah, men always have a tough time finding stuff in this English world especially. So check out Equestrian Collections. That's where you can find your men's stuff, breeches, and the whole outfit, actually. So
yes.
And, of course, you carry tack. We were talking about clothing here, but...
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
we tack and supplements, but tack we have, again, I think at this point we have the largest selection of tack in the industry, again, bar none. So, come and see us for that. But we are better known, I have to say, for our apparel, since that's where we started.
EquestrianCollections.com. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, our guest coming up today is John Blackburn. He's the principal and founder of Blackburn Architects, with offices in Washington, D.C. and San Francisco, California. Their award-winning portfolio includes hundreds of equestrian facilities, as well as commercial, residential, and historic renovation projects throughout the U.S. and Canada. I'm a big fan of John's work, so welcome, John.
Hi, Helena. How are you? Glad to be here.
Good. We are, Glenn and I have been perusing through the Blackburn Architects website and basically drooling over some of the equestrian projects that you've taken on. Can you give us a little bit of a background about Blackburn Architects and how you got started in equestrian structures?
Well, how I got started is a long story, but I got started 25 years ago, and you probably don't have a long enough radio show for me to go through how it's an interesting way I got started, but it's basically, I'll try the short version. I had a partner at the time. We were interviewed. We were doing a little garage additions and porch enclosures and whatever we could do to keep our little office open. And someone called about wanting to knew if we knew anybody wanted to design a horse farm. And we thought about 2 seconds before we said, hey, we would. So we raised our hand, so we went for an interview. And they were interviewing other architects who had probably done real buildings, and we had just done little ones. And so we found out from the owner that they wanted barns that would fit in. This is in Northern Virginia. And so we went out and photographed existing buildings, just every kind of building we could think of. And we showed him images and said, if you want buildings that fit into Middleburg, this is what they should look like in terms of shapes and forms and materials. And we were basically hired on the spot. He loved it. We hit the nail on the head.
That's fabulous. And then, so what was it that you built for him?
Well, what we did is we teamed with a landscape architect, Morgan Wheelock from Boston, who had this theory about placing barns in the landscape using natural light and natural ventilation and vertical ventilation of the barns. We designed these barns to work to that philosophy. It worked beautifully. You could go in these barns in the August dead of no wind, and your hair would start to lift just from the breeze going through the barn. And that's the theory that basically I describe it as I've been using that, following that, riding that horse for 25 years, and it works. It works beautifully.
Actually, hold on to that thought, because I'd like to come back to that and talk to you about that in more detail, because I do see that as a common element in the design features of the barns in your portfolio.
Okay.
Do you have any horses of your own?
No, I don't. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I rode when I grew up with horses. I had a twin sister who rode and showed horses. I was more interested in playing in the barn and just getting on a horse like a 12-year-old kid would do and see how far you could ride before you'd fall off. And so just hacking around even today I would love to go on trail rides, but I have no interest in showing. But I do love design for horses, though.
Well, you've come a long way from designing sheds out back.
Well, we still do a few sheds out back. We do all types. Now, you look at our website, you'll see a lot of beautiful barns. Well, the beautiful ones do tend to photograph better, but we do all types, all budgets. I've said, you need to, it's hard to say, but you can design. Good design does not have to cost an arm and a leg.
And does it have to be big? Can you take those design elements and scale them down to something that?
Absolutely. You can do it we've done as small as 4-stall barns to 24-stall barns. Generally, we don't do barns larger than 24 stalls. By the time you get that size, you need to break it into 2 barns because it becomes unmanageable in terms of service and time just walking back and forth in the barn. So it's generally anywhere from 4 to 24.
That's a good point. Never thought about that. How long it would take you to walk from one end of a barn to another.
There's a lot to consider. I've learned over myself over 25 years.
That's true. I'll tell you what. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, and you've done a lot of barns down here, I see.
Yes.
Yes. But there are some barns down here. I'm thinking even at the horse park, the big barn over there, it takes you 5 minutes to walk from one end to the other. I mean.
Right. And the thought is this: not as the cost of the barn, you think about the cost of. When you lay out a farm as well as a barn, you think about the man hours of operating that barn. I mean, you got a groom walking, down the length, half the length of an aisle if it's a center aisle barn. A 24-stall barn, the services tend to be put in the middle, so you can cut the walk time for a groom to go from that far stall to the service elements of the barn. And if you have 20 and 30 stalls in a row continuing, that's a long walk, and so you're spending a lot of your time just going back and forth.
Right.
And so,
when you say service elements, are you talking about things like the grain room and
tack room, grain room, hay and bedding storage, all the various things that we tend to concentrate those in areas generally towards the center. In barns that are 16 stalls and larger, we tend to make them symmetrical. We put those elements in the middle. If you get a 12-stall barn or smaller, you tend to locate them to one end because you don't want to split it up too much at that point.
So let's go back now to the open and airy feelings that we were talking about, because as I said, your designs do have that particular feature in common. tell us about that. What benefit is it to the barn? How does planning come into play? Because obviously, keeping good, healthy airflow through a barn is like the holy grail of barn
That's
building.
Right.
So how do you achieve that?
Let me describe it this way. A horse is meant to live in the wild. And as soon as you bring a horse into a paddock, and even more so into a barn, you're asking for trouble. The horse really should live in nature. So if you're designing a barn, you need to design that barn to work as closely with nature as possible. In other words, a horse shouldn't be brought into an air-conditioned barn. It really shouldn't be brought into a heated barn. The barn temperature really should be as close to what it finds in the paddock. If a horse wants to get out of the sun in the wild, what does it do? It runs under the shade of a tree or behind something. If it wants to get out of the wind, it runs behind a hill. So when you put it in a barn, it loses that control. Right. And so what the barn now has to do, you're sort of basically, in the design of the barn, playing God. You're now controlling the weather on that horse. And so if the horse needs to have ventilation, which it always does, because a horse gives off a tremendous amount of humidity and bacteria, and so it needs to be, the barn needs to be ventilated. The best way to ventilate a barn is vertically, because if you have a horse on one side who has an infection, it's going to transfer a bacterial infection. It's going to transfer that potentially to another horse, either across the aisle from a fan blowing through the barn, or or right next to it. So what we try to do is introduce air in low and air out high at the ridge. We never put a loft in a barn unless the owner requests it. The reason, because you want that vertical lift. Now, how do you create wind when there is no wind? Most people say, well, put a fan. Well, how can you do this without adding fans? Fans add cost, add capital cost, maintenance cost. It's a risk, and it can transfer disease from one horse to another. So if you can ventilate the barn vertically, naturally, then you have solved a lot of problems at one time. And so what we do is we will introduce air in the wall low, generally through Dutch doors or even vents if they don't have Dutch doors. Certainly windows along the eave, but at the no loft, and then at the top we'll generally put a skylight down the ridge. And that does two things for you. One, it heats up. And even in August in South Texas, you want that thing to heat up. And the why is because it creates a temperature difference between the ridge and the floor. And just like a chimney in your house, the heat rises. And because of the heat on the roof at a certain angle, you tend to try to make the roof 7 and 12 or steeper. Heat through the roof, heat from the horse, and the heat difference between the skylight and the bottom creates wind.
So now, you're creating a temperature gradient just with vents.
Just with vents, and the use of building up heat at certain areas of the barn creates ventilation through the barn.
That's interesting.
And it's vertical ventilation. Now, the other critical things is placing the barn in a perpendicular to the prevailing summer breeze. So as the wind blows across the fields against the barn and over the barn, it works somewhat like an airplane wing. It creates lift. And so you're capturing the wind, and then you're using it in the barn and designing the barn to facilitate wind.
I got to tell you, that's very interesting, because I never thought about that. That's the same that's the same way wind works outside the barn. Is the difference between the hot and cold air creates storms, even, you know?
Right. As the wind blows across the roof, it creates a low pressure area on the backside, and that pulls air through the barn.
Right. Huh.
It's the Bernoulli effect, basically. That's the word, the scientific word it's given to, I guess, to the inventor or who discovered it. But we just applied it to barns from the suggestion of Morgan Wheelock 25 years ago, and it works beautifully. And the second point about the skylight is now you have all natural light in your barn. In our barns where we have no lofts and skylights, you light the barn all day long without any electric lights.
So do you recommend having the hay in a different barn then, or a different building?
I recommend what I generally do is I put bulk storage elsewhere. Then I usually provide weekly storage in the barn, either in a stall area down towards one end, or if it's a fairly large storage, certainly behind a fire separation like a masonry wall or something like that. Not necessarily a rated wall that would be by code, but certainly a separation so that you could basically stop the fire and defer or deflect any smoke getting into the barn, so you have time to get the horses out.
For example, as if you had stacked hay that could spontaneously combust.
That's right. If hay is stored in an area, it's giving off, I guess, as it cures, it gives off, maybe it's a methane gas, I don't know, but whatever, it can build up, and it can create an explosion. But that, with the dust particles that can accumulate in an enclosed environment, so we always vent the barn the hay storage area where we can.
And so, but that kind of risk can happen whether the hay is stored in a loft or in a segregated section of the barn. The way you're talking, the risk is the same. But so you're saying it's behind a wall that at least gives you time to separate the fire from the animals.
That's right. Now the other thought is, even in a hayloft, if we had when we've done this, if we have barns and someone wants to have hayloft, well, we introduce as much natural light into that hayloft as possible, because one of the problems with haylofts is you have a light. Someone goes upstairs to turn on the loft light, and either cobwebs are built up around it or a bird's nest is built on it. You get a spark, you get a fire, and you have your problem. But if you can, and most of the time you're servicing the loft during the day, if you have natural light coming into that loft, then what have you saved? You save having to turn on that light or leave it on, and even if a cobweb or what is built around it, your dependence on it and your tendency to leave it on during the day, and someone goes downstairs to feed the horses or whatever, then there's less likely to have a fire. There's so many things that you can do, and our whole premise of designing barns has been focused on the health and safety of the horse. So everything, hopefully do good architecture at the same time, but everything is driven by concern for the health and safety of the horse, whether it's light and ventilation, whether the details of the barn, how it's designed, the stalls, the details of the layout of the farm, where your roads and type materials you use, and all those sort of things. All that is critical, and it's all governed by concern for the health and safety of the horse.
John,
what
are the biggest mistakes people make when they build barns?
Well, I think, and architecturally, I can say one of the first things I see is people say, well, let's add cupolas and dormers to the build. Well, they're nice, and historically, they add they add architectural elements, but they don't do much for you for light or ventilation.
Right.
So, in fact, I've done barns where I've added cupolas and dormers, but also had skylights, because, hey, they get their architectural elements, but I got to have my light in there. But those are the sort of the big mistakes that some people make. And then I think the other is, I think it's just they think they have maybe lighter ventilation, and they've covered the gamut of what they need to do. There's so many things that I'm discovering things, every day of how we can do something differently, or how we can do something better, or how something that I go to other barns all the time. I love to go tour the barns, because I'm always sort of, that's a mistake, and that's something we can do better, or whatever. There's just so many ways and so many things that you can do to make a healthier and safe environment for a horse, because the horse is basically, I've always said, is sort of really working for the vet. They'll find a way to injure themselves every time. You give them half a chance and they'll do it.
Helena knows that.
That's a whole nother show, Glenn. I think that might be good for next week's topic.
Hey, G, what do you use for your aisleways? Do you use, what do you try and use for that? What do you recommend?
A variety of materials. I think the best flooring is the interlocking rubber brick.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's the most expensive, but it's the best, because it looks great. It's soft, but we do a variety of things. We'll do what we call popcorn asphalt, which is an asphalt made without a lot of the little fines, so water drains through it, and it doesn't create black ice in really cold environments, and it can reheal itself if it heaves during freezing in the winter. Some people don't like it because it is sort of porous, and therefore it does collect dust and dirt and that sort of things, but you can hose it down very easily and it drains. I would say in a dusty environment where you don't have a lot of water, you may not want to consider that. So there's different materials, as they say, different strokes for different folks. They have different ways they want to do it. I've also described it as you get 100 barn managers in a room, and you'll get 101 with different ways how to do it. There's no one set way.
A man right after my heart. I say that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Only I say, you ask 10 questions and you get 10 different answers. But 100 is probably more like it.
Right.
So now I've seen the rubber pavers, and one of the things that I noticed is that the shavings tend to stick to it. If you take a blower, does that kind of clean it up pretty well? And this is aside from hosing it down.
Let me just say, you should never use a blower around the barn unless you got all your horses out of the barn.
Right.
Because that's just going to stir up dust, and it's just bad for the horses. Certainly in a horse with, a sensitive respiratory system, and all horses tend to have that, you just should never use blowers around barns.
That's a good point.
Wash it down is the best way to do it.
Okay. So when you're mucking stalls in one of these beautifully ventilated barns, and you've got some dusty shavings, one of the things I notice when I muck is that the dust just seems to rise and poof and not really know where to go unless a door is open or I'm creating some kind of draft. What happens in these barns that are naturally ventilated when you're mucking stalls? Where does all that dust go?
Well, I don't think you're getting one. Is down near the floor, so you're not getting as quite breeze across. You're not getting the kind of breeze that a fan would create. In fact, we do put fans in a lot of our barns for that. But we put them high on the wall just so they can do a horse gives the option of standing in front of it or standing out of it. But it's not. I design barns, and I have them built, but I don't work them every day, so I don't know. But I am talking with previous owners or current owners. I've never had a problem with it complaining that dust builds up in the air because of it. I think that has to do a lot with the different types of bedding that people use. I have complaints of one owner will complain about a certain type of bedding where another will not. So I think that's a matter of preference. But do I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I'm a fan of shredded paper myself, but because the dust is really tough to deal with sometimes, and it depends too on your shavings provider. Some shavings seem to be less dusty than others, but
right.
We used shredded paper for years, but our neighbors hated it.
Because
Why? We'd spread it in the fields, and then it would blow all over the place and get in their yards, and it didn't work that well.
And that's a problem in the winter when you have a frozen ground or snow on the ground. You can't really spread it, or it does get to be unsightly and blow around. So
yeah.
Somebody told me though that the papers tends to break down or compost faster than shavings. Do either of you guys know if that's true or not?
I don't know. It seemed to be white.
It makes sense.
It does make sense, right?
Sense, it would.
I think what happens though is the paper's just sort of unsightly, where the shaving sort of blends in.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the big. Now you have something called adaptive reuse.
Right.
What's that?
That's adapting an old building to a new use. Now that's whether it's generally it's taking an old barn and adapting it to a house or what we call party barns because people have guest houses and different things. We've done a number of those. Or we're adapting a dairy barn to a horse barn.
I was just going to say because we always had we've had a couple farms and we always had the bank barn that was there when we went in, and they are not the best for air movement or anything.
Right. You're right. They're not.
They're probably not the best for horse barns. For sure.
And dairy barns are difficult too because they usually have a low head height because obviously these cows are, they don't rear up quite as high as a horse does, and so their headroom is often in the ground floor too low.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. But I love saving old barns. Nothing bothers me more than to see a nice old barn in the countryside as you're driving down the road collapsing because of just people, the uses going off and left it, and it's just dying, and it's sad. And I love to see restore old barns and yet preserve them as barns and where they look like barns. Even when I take one and I make it into a house or a guest house or a little retreat, I try to retain its agricultural look as much as possible. So that's why I love saving old buildings.
You've got one in Warm Springs, Virginia, up on your website. I think you call it the Granary, which is stunning. It's such a beautiful mix of old and new. It doesn't even feel new. It looks.
In fact, everything in that building is recycled from that barn and one that's adjoining to it, and the only paint in that barn is on the roof and on the front door. Everything else is all natural.
It's beautiful.
Oh, that's good.
So what do you suggest if someone like me has a dream and wants someone like you to build a barn for her? What do I do? How do I get started?
What people typically do is they find us through our website. They contact us. They they tell me basically what they want to do. I would contact them back. I would say, Helena, here's what I'll describe to you over the phone what we do. And then if you have a site that's unplanned and you want us to master plan the entire site, I would come visit you, look at the site, and then I would give you a proposal to do all the layout of the farm, the paddocks, the roads, where everything goes, even your own house if it's raw land. Or if you have an existing farm and you want to either recondition it in some way, or you say, I just need a barn over here, I'll come look at it and I'll say, that's great, we can design a barn for there, but, this is not quite maybe the best way. Maybe you want to look at it over here because it's a little higher ground or whatever, this or that. And so we will then give you a proposal either to master plan or design the barn. And then we work with you like typically an architect would work with anyone around the country designing the facility, taking you through getting a contractor and working with you to get it built. Or we'll take a back seat necessarily and sort of step back and say, well, we know this builder. We got a good builder here. And then we don't need to be that involved. We'll be sort of peripherally involved. If we can keep the thing moving along and following the drawings, built properly, then we will pull back and I don't want to add to your costs. I'd rather see you put the money where you can into the building, but we also want to see the building built properly and correctly. So that's sort of what we do. We start usually with a site visit, master plan, concept design package, and then we go from there with the standard architectural drawings. Now, we're licensed in most states that we work. I'm licensed in 30 states. But, if you say, for example, I'm not licensed in Maine. If somebody wanted me to do a barn in Maine, I would either get licensed or I would do it under our other business name, which is Blackburn Equestrian Design. And because most agricultural buildings in most states, you're not required to be an architect to design them. But I like to, that's what I'm trained to do, and quite often I just get licensed when it gets to the point of we're providing architectural services. But it's a variety of ways, but that's how we typically work.
That's good. It doesn't sound very intimidating. I know sometimes the process can feel intimidating, but that sounds pretty straightforward. I like the fact that you're flexible and you'll do as much or as little as the customer wants. So that's
right.
Pretty
In fact,
nice.
we even go into site selections. If people say, well, I have 2 or 3 sites, I'm not sure which is best for the horses or which is best to raise horses. So we'll go meet with them and look at 2 or 3 sites and help them evaluate and do sort of a due diligence on the various sites. And so we can anywhere from the very beginning to walk out the door and put your horses in the stalls, and it's done.
Well, I wanted to say to everybody that they can find you at blackburnarch.com for Blackburn Architects. I just have one more question. What's the economy? How has it affected you at this point?
Well, it's like all architects in the building business. It's affected us. We've had a cutback in our business quite a bit. We haven't had to cut staff too much. We've lost 1 staff out of 12 over the last. Well, 1 we had to let go, but we did lose. We have a woman an architect worked with us who had a child, and she decided not to come back. So we've reduced our staff some, but it's affected everybody, and certainly in the building industry. But we're staying moderately busy. It's not as much fun when it's not as busy, but
right.
but
for anybody.
Yeah, but we're very well known for what we do, and we try to provide a service that's of value to the owner, and hopefully we do, and they will keep calling.
Well, you do great work. I know I pass several of your barns down here just driving around all the time.
Well, good. So appreciate that.
You do. They are very pretty, and of course, obviously the landscape has a lot to do with it. And I think that when you come to Lexington, you realize how much having that complete site design is important, because the landscape. When you drive around here, you realize how much the landscape around the barn is as important as the barn itself.
Right. And horse people are such traditionalists. It's hard to break out of that old school mold where a barn is supposed to look and work like this, and it's really working against your horses. And I think what John is doing is so much better. But you don't have to lose your traditional flavor.
No, and I think if you look at our designs, you see that they're all over the place in terms of a barn. In other words, a barn in Lexington, Kentucky, has a certain context. It needs to it has the sort of the cupolas and the dormers and those sort of things, and we do that. But then you build that barn in Southern California, and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. and so it has a different look. So what we try to do, and with hopefully my architectural training and my knowledge of horses, is that we design for the care and concern of the horse, but yet we develop some architecture that fits in to the context in which it's built and responds to the natural environment, and that's what we try to do.
All right, John. Well, we thank you for being on the show with us today. It was great to talk about barns, and I encourage everybody to go over to blackburnarch.com and just take a look at the pictures and dream a little. It's a lot of fun, and you've done some great work. And as I said, we appreciate you being on and talking about what you do. And
we'll post links to the website on stablescoop.com, so you'll be able to link over there.
Well, that was great. He has, I have to tell everybody, stop over to his website and just drool.
Yeah.
Take a look, go to Equine and take a look at some of the barns he's put up. He does build the dream barns.
But you know what, too, is don't let it intimidate you, because I was surprised to hear that they'll do work for just about any budget. So it doesn't have to be a big, beautiful, drooly thing.
If you want building shacks,
garages. Garages.
Which it's come a long way since a shed in the backyard, though.
I'd love to take one of those, like those little, that one in Montana, and just take a smaller version of it and put it in my backyard.
There you go. You can put your pony in there.
Yeah.
Well, we want to also mention, don't forget Equestrian Life. That's our official community that we have here in the Horse Radio Network. Stop over at equestrianlife.com, and you can click on the Horse Radio link in the upper right-hand corner. You'll see all of our shows there, and also that's the place where you can talk about our shows and have conversations and comment, and there's a little forum built into each episode. So if you want to talk about barns or anything else from this episode, you can stop over to Equestrian Life, click on the Horse Radio link, and start chatting away. We appreciate Equestrian Life and everything that they're doing. It is really the Facebook for horse people. So if you want a Facebook that truly caters to the horse person, that one's it. Check it out. And as you know, Helena, we have a couple other shows on the network, and one of them is the 2010 radio show. And this week we had the First Lady of Kentucky, Jane Bashir, was on with us. She is on the World Equestrian Games board, and she also is a horsewoman in her own right. She's an eventer, still competes, by the way, as the First Lady. As a matter of fact, when I talked to her, she was at the barn at the time I was talking to her. So,
where else can you find? I mean, where else? That's the place to be.
It is. I was just saying. I was talking with her about this. That it is perfect in the history of Kentucky that at this time in the Kentucky's history, when we're getting the 2010 World Equestrian Games, that we have a true horsewoman as the First Lady. And the governor...
Is that the first time?
I don't know, but I mean, it's just appropriate because she is truly a horsewoman. She hunts, by the way, and by the way, the governor hunts.
All right.
Yeah, he was out hunting last weekend.
All right.
So, yeah,
I like them already.
Yeah, so they both hunt, and then she also events. And she does lower levels up to, I think she said, like advanced or training level. I don't remember which. But Jane's a good lady, and she actually shops at my wife's store, too. So
Okay.
So check that out. You want to hear what she had to say. She's a very interesting, lovely lady.
All right.
And the eventing radio show this week, we did something that we've never tried before. We had a writers' roundtable, and we actually had we were joking about this. We actually had 4 4-star riders. So we had 4 riders on the show, and they have all done 4-star events. So we've had Gina Miles, who, of course, is the silver medalist from the Olympics.
Right, and she was on this show earlier on.
Yes, she was on our show. Gina's been one of our most prolific guests, actually. We've had her on a lot of the shows. She's also
Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, she's also been on the 2010 show. So Gina's been around. So Gina was on. Allison Springer, who is a well-known eventer, who also has been on this show. I think Allison was on this show, wasn't she?
No, she was on a venting radio show.
But Allison's been on one of the shows. Will Faudree was on, who is a heartthrob of all the teens that follow eventing. And Hallie Bennett, who is from Canada. So the 4 of them were on, and it was a roundtable discussion. We had actually all the questions were submitted by listeners. And we just let them... Oh, there goes my cell phone. I forgot to turn it off again, Helena.
I'm telling you, remedial podcasting, you are on your way, buddy. You are going. Pack your bags.
One of these days I'll remember to do it right. So we're almost at 80 episodes between all of the shows, and I'm still not getting it right. So it was a great show. It was very interesting because we would ask the question and let them go. And they were very good at bouncing ideas because some of them, one of the questions was, what would you change in eventing in the United States? And there were some really cool questions like that. And then we just let them go. And Will threw in a couple things, and then they agreed and disagreed. And it was just a neat format that I think we're going to try on our show, too, with different groups of guests. It really did work. I was impressed.
How did it work? Because I haven't had a chance to listen to the show yet. How was it technically?
It worked great. It worked great. It was no problem. They all could hear each other very well. Because it was the first time we really, with our technology, tried to get 6 people. There were Chris and I and 4 of them.
Oh my gosh. So, kudos to you. That would have
it worked really well. And I was impressed. So stop over to eventingradio.com to listen to that. It's well worth a listen. And, of course, here on Stable Scoop, we'll have a great topic for you again next week. And don't forget that the show notes for today's show can be found at stablescoop.com. Right there, each show is listed, and you can listen to past shows as well. Don't forget to sign up through iTunes or Zune so that you can listen while you're cleaning stalls. And we actually had our first comment and our first kudos on iTunes. You know, on each iTunes podcast, you can leave feedback. And we had our first feedback. The lady loved the show and listens to all of them. So
good. Good.
Yeah, so that was nice. She gave us 5 stars. So we thank her for that.
Yeah, we want more of that. Can you please give us more of that?
Yeah, you can leave us feedback. Well, Helena, I think that we have to wrap it up for today, but we'll see everybody again next week with another cool episode of the Stable Scoop Radio Show. See you again next week, Helena.
We'll be back here with the scoop.